Welcome to US Tzu Chi 360. I'm Ginger Chang. Today we bring you the third part to Jimmy Woo's remarkable story, where we will discover the details of Jimmy's incarceration and address the issue of youth justice. According to the Vera Institute on Justice, in New York alone, over 1,600 youths enter the state's juvenile detention centers each year, and the annual cost to detain a child is about $210,000. But instead of sentencing these troubled young people to jail, the key is to prevent and intervene before harm is done. And one individual who is dedicated to helping promoting positive youth development with at-risk youths is Martin Torres. Welcome, Martin.
I'm glad to be here.
How do you define a child who is at risk?
An at-risk child is someone who is more likely to be exposed to the criminal justice and the juvenile systems. At risk, not definite, of course, but there are many risk factors involved, such as family, drug abuse, mental and physical abuse from parents or any guardians, mental illness, poverty, and all of these things combined, in addition to whatever schooling systems they have, can categorize a child as being at risk.
Okay.
One of the big things is poverty, and that poverty is turned into social degradation. Like, there are not many strong social programs in those areas just because of lack of funds.
And some of the children you work with, are some of their parents actually incarcerated?
Some of them are, yes.
Okay. Well, the National Justice Institute has said that actually children with parents who's been incarcerated or released, they are more likely to serve time in prison, 5 times more likely. So it's important to actually, what you're doing, the positive youth development is very crucial. So let's turn to the first segment, where Jimmy reveals how he became incarcerated, which he blames mainly for being young and rash.
It's been 16 years, exactly 16 years. You were a stupid little kid, a 16-year-old. I didn't know what you were getting yourself into. 16 years later, I'm proud of you. You did everything you said you were going to do. I know you're going to accomplish all of your dreams. I know you're not going to let those 13.5 years of incarceration be for nothing. Every lesson, every moment, every person who had ever taught you anything meaningful, anything life-changing, those are the things you must retain and remember for the rest of your life. You must use those lessons to help others. It is your obligation and it is your responsibility.
Where we grew up, there were a lot of Asian gangs. But there were also a lot of boys who just dressed like gangsters, even though they weren't gangsters. And as far as I know, Jimmy wasn't a gangster, but he might have dressed like one because so many of the kids did. But other than that, he was just a normal kid. He was really nice, really sweet.
Look at my mom's hair. I know, right?
I didn't really know exactly what group of friends he was around, because all that I knew was the Jimmy that, that I hung out with and the one that used to play jokes on me. It was a shock because I guess I thought that I knew the crowd, but it was unfortunate because it was, sometimes when you're young, I mean, you get into the wrong crowd and people influence you into certain things. Before you know it, there's repercussions to it.
How old were they in that picture?
And I'm almost 37.
And I'm almost 33. Exactly 4 years apart.
January of 1996, it was maybe 3 days before my arrest. A group of people approached me and they asked me if I would be interested in making some fast money. And all I had to do was present them with a car. I had to go and steal a car that they really wanted. It was a Lexus LS400, which was quite popular back then. So I was promised that if I was to commit this crime, I would receive like between $10,000 to $20,000. So being 16 years old, I was very intrigued by the possibility. this time, I wasn't as financially well off as everybody else I knew. And I was going to Arcadia High School at that time, and Arcadia is, you know, a pretty middle upper class area. So all these kids my age, they had cars, they had nice cars, BMWs, Mercedes, you know, Benzes and things like that. And here I was, a person that was still dependent on other people for transportation, sometimes taking a bus and things like that. And I wanted to be like these other kids. I wanted to be the guy that had a car, that had the prettiest girlfriends, things like that, you know. So I told these people that, yeah, you know, I was interested.
We're failing them on every dimension. We're failing them as families. We're failing them as communities. We're failing them as faith communities. We're failing them as a system. We're failing them as schools. And primarily, we're losing them at middle school. My son's in 7th grade now, and I'm telling you, I see his challenges. It's a funky time. Everything's changing. Academics are harder. You know, your body's changing. The girls are showing up. It's all really, it's a lot of stuff to handle, and a lot of our kids don't have the support to do it.
2 other people joined me during the act of this crime, and we were able to find an elderly couple that had this card. At gunpoint, we asked them to please just cooperate. All we wanted was their car. We didn't want to harm them in any way. So we followed them to their residence, proceeded to blindfold them and to basically tie their hands and legs together so that they wouldn't be able to run away. We thought we were doing something smart by taking these victims of our crime with us. We thought that because cars had low jack, it would possibly be better for us to take our victims with us until we dropped off the car to where it needed to go, and then we would drop them off at a different location, because we didn't want for the victims to call their low jack number and to have us basically caught in transit to wherever we were supposed to drop this car off.
When Jimmy was here, I think the youngest was like 14, and that was really rare. You didn't have a lot of 14-year-olds. But over the years, the age has gotten younger and younger. We had a 10-year-old girl. She just went to another juvenile hall. She's in 4th grade. 10 years old is the youngest.
Because we were so young and stupid. We thought kidnapping was like what we see in movies out on TV, where you take somebody, you hold them hostage, and you call their family for money. We thought that's what kidnapping was. We didn't think that just because we were moving one person from one place to another without their full consent, that was kidnapping. But now, as a grown man and going through our California prison system and learning some of the laws, I know that kidnapping is actually moving from one person from point A to point B for only X number of feet. Maybe it's like only 5-10 feet, and that's kidnapping, and that can result in a life sentence. I didn't know that as a 16-year-old. So we did take the victims of our crime with us, and we did drop off the car to where it needed to go. And as we were in the process of dropping off our victims in an alley, that is when a patrol vehicle happened to go by for a routine inspection. There was only one way in and one way out, and the patrol vehicle blocked the only entrance and exit. So that's how we ended up getting arrested. And so we were caught while we were actually removing our victims from our vehicle to put them there, and we were going to let them go and just leave.
People have done something wrong. There has to be a certain punishment that they get as a consequence for their actions. That doesn't mean that we continually punish them, we throw away the key and lock them away for the rest of their lives. And I think that has to be always reviewed on a case-by-case basis. We've seen kids in juvenile hall who have changed their lives dramatically, and not just because they've got a sentence coming up, but because they really believe that what they've done is wrong, and they've seen things, they've grown to a maturity by the time they're 18 or 19, and they continue to grow and see what they've done has been wrong. And they also want to learn something from their own life and pass that on to people who have been in their own position and who are gang members and no longer want to be part of that.
I mean, after next month I'll be done. For 3 years, because I'm on high control. But after next month I will be done. Okay.
Most of the time the kids, when they're here, they're already going to court. They want to do their best here. And they usually do. You can see kids who excel. The classes, you only have boys, so the girls aren't a disruption. They want to do well. They want to take something to court that shows they're doing well. I think sometimes when the kids get here, they realize, you know, what am I going to do with my life? I'm almost 18, so then they really start focusing. They always want to know, you know, what classes do I need to graduate? How many credits short am I? What credits do I need? So I think it kind of, you know, it stops them where they have to stop and think, hey, what am I doing and where am I going to go?
Probably the good thing about juvenile hall, it's just not a timeout, but it's an environment in which a kid through different mentors and a kid through different programs could not only reflect upon himself, but to grow through schooling, through listening to the teachers, staff, programs like Inside Writers, if they get religious, if they study the Bible, so that it expands their minds, enters it to a different consciousness.
Welcome back. New York and North Carolina remain the only two states in the entire country that still automatically charge a 16-year-old as an adult. Martin, what's the downside of putting a child through the adult criminal system, especially the mental health aspect?
Well, the big downside is the reoffense record. If you take two 16-year-olds who commit the same crime, put one through the adult system, put one through the juvenile system, the one through the adult system is much more likely to be back within the system within 6 months. And that's a very, very unfortunate side effect, because the juvenile system is more rehabilitative and the adult system is more punitive in punishment. And when you put a child through that adult system, it's almost like you're inhibiting their potential. And when you're inhibiting that potential and putting them through a jailing system which is not as pristine as it should be, it's going to create a myriad of mental problems for the child, even because relatively their brain is still developing until the age of 21, until 25. So you're just inhibiting that real growth in a child. What I do when I work there is just try to empathize with them, not they're black or Hispanic, not if they're poor, just that they're kids, and that I understood that I was a kid once and we're just going to talk, and I want you just to be honest with me, I'm going to be honest with you, and just establish that trust, because unfortunately a lot of these kids don't have a consistent, strong role model in their life or someone that they could go to. And I feel like once you have that stability, that you could excel and really tap into that real potential that every child has. I believe every child has that potential.
It's great that they have you as a support, because adolescence is the critical period where you're transitioning from childhood to adulthood, and the behaviors you establish now actually affects your current and future lifestyle. So let's take a break, and we're gonna go see the moment of truth that was a loud wake-up call to Jimmy.
Central Juvenile Hall is a holding facility. So our kids come in for short periods of time. They're in for 3 weeks to maybe 3 months while they're waiting to find out if they're going home on house arrest, or if they're going to camp, or if they're going to placement or something. But what we do with them during that time can affect how they do their time in placement. What we're doing with them in the system, we keep kids attached to the system too much. I have kids who get violated for stupid reasons, so they end up incarcerated again for 2 weeks now because you didn't go to school or you didn't show up to court for a ticket. Like, do we really have to incarcerate a kid for not showing up to court? There has to be an alternative. So I think one of the things is finding more alternatives to incarceration. We're too quick to say, lock them up.
Basically, you can't isolate one part of gang life. It's all a unit. It's drugs, it's violence, it's, criminal behavior, whatever language you want to use. And so they're out of control. A lot of them are on crystal meth, all sorts of drugs. So all of a sudden you find yourself locked up in a room by yourself, and you're having to deal with your own self. That it's a wake-up call. You kind of ask these questions: what am I doing with my life? And so that's what we call it, a wake-up timeout. It's time out. You don't have to worry about doing anything else. You could just focus in on yourself. So that's why I think it's helpful some kids get locked up. They're actually, rather than a kid that gets, commits a serious crime and goes to Silmar and then has a little bit of time there and then he immediately goes to county. I think that's not good. Too young.
There is room for growth, but so often we sentence these kids to 50 years to life and throw away the key, and we feel that that's not a very good way to build a society, because nobody wins. Two families who are hurting and nobody's stepping in to saying, okay, let's see how we can resolve some of this problems.
We don't realize what that's doing to them with their families, to their sense of identity, and to their desensitization to being locked up. So by the time I had a kid who was 13 years old and had been locked up 8 times already.
Not that they want to come here, but sometimes, and especially for the girls, it's safer. They have a place to sleep. They have probation who's watching over them. They're fed. They're able to shower. And for some kids, unfortunately, this environment, this is better than what they have on the streets. For some kids, it's a safe place, and that's sad, because why would, to think that a kid would want to come here versus their home, that tells you something.
Soon, the first time I walked into court as a prisoner, I asked myself, what am I doing with my life? Who am I becoming? How did I get to the point of being locked up? Jesus, help me when I go to court. Help me be clear within light, so that judge and lawyers will see in me someone who wants to do something with my life. I'm young. I've made mistakes, but I want to change. Help my family, support them in their hurt. Jesus, you carried a cross to the hill when you were murdered. You were looked upon as a dangerous criminal, but your Abba God raised you from the dead. Jesus, help me not to give up hope. Let me feel you close to me, even when it seems so dark. Be with me when I go to court. Amen. So we ask God to be with us, with the spirit of our youngsters. Amen.
Months later, when we were in adult court, the victims of our crime actually showed up at one of our hearings, and they told the courts, the judge and everybody else that was in that room, that we were the most polite and considerate criminals that they could have ever expected to encounter. Felt that, I had messed up horribly, and I basically deserved to be punished, and I did. By them, being so kind in their words and in their thoughts of how they viewed us, it actually hurt me even more, because it was the opposite reaction of what I expected from them. I expected them to be very bitter, to be very angry, to want the judge to basically throw the book at us and lock us away forever. But then a complete opposite that they did, and it was like that other saying goes, kill your enemies with kindness. We went home from court that day just feeling like, wow, how could we have done this to people like that? That have such huge hearts, that have such amazing abilities to be able to forgive someone or people that have just come in and basically traumatized them.
In most places, for most of time, the concept of justice has been much more closely associated with balance, with restoring a balance, as opposed to just punishing. Somehow in our modern Western vocabulary, justice has come to mean essentially punishment, and we think when an offender has a very severe or very long sentence, then justice has been served. When in fact, just that in and of itself doesn't always give the kinds of sustenance that survivors really need to be able to fully recuperate and to fully thrive as a result of crime.
The important thing is something transcendent, something more than who we are. rather than the only solution is hate or bitterness or revenge. Those are our normal kind of first knee-jerk reactions. But I think when you add in God, it's something deeper. Or written to them after they've been given life sentence. I like the rush. When I'm on a mission, I like getting high with my homeboys. We have pride in our work. I have no family except my homeboys. I would do anything for them. I'm a warrior of darkness, and I will continue to be one. Nothing is going to change me. I know I really am addicted to the lifestyle, the ladies, the drugs, the rush of missions. I know this might not last long, but I feel powerless to change my lifestyle. When I got jumped into the neighborhood, I said nothing is going to separate us, even death. I can't get out of this insanity, I wonder, but I feel this evil face looking at me, threatening me that I cannot change. What is saddest, I know the sadness I'm causing to my family because I'm a warrior of darkness. I also know I won't be alive very long, travel to places I've never been, never make love to someone that I really mean it to, never just being who I am. I choose to continue to be a warrior of darkness. My lifestyle is of darkness. So a kid wrote that.
You might be in prison for a long time, but you're still valuable and there's still something for you to do. We just have to figure out what that is. I have to go deeper because on the surface it'll break you if you don't.
Wake up.
Forget everything you've been through, everything that has happened. You must remember all of it. You must do your part to help others to the best of your abilities, in the same way people have helped you. Many people would have forgotten about you. Many people could have forgotten about you. They didn't. Show them and show yourself that it was all worth it.
Brings up a very good point that justice is more about bringing balance and rehabilitation. The Justice Policy also reports that community-based and family-focused programs are more cost-effective than incarceration. Martin, so what improvement have you seen so far from some of the students?
The big thing I've seen is their work ethic and their confidence. And I believe that was tied into one another. Like they were confident and felt that they could really do what they wanted to set out to, which made them work harder. And that was one thing that I think I tried to instill more than anything.
Well, Martin, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. And for those of you at home, I hope you enjoyed today's feature presentation, and I'll see you next week.